Maybe there are caveats in the First and Second Amendments that have to be rethought. It's possible.
But you know this. This is when leadership matters. And people go back to Charlottesville as one of the ugliest days in recent history. And some people blame the president for the hate that we're seeing right now and his lack of response in that moment. He said recently that he handled it perfectly. Even Joe Biden used it in his recent announcement ad, talking about both sides and that we're in a battle for our soul. Do you think the president handled it perfectly, or is he part of the reason why there is such a division and a hate right now?
First of all, it's a good question. I watched your show on Friday. I watched the interviews with Biden. I wanted to start and say that there's this myth on the left. It's not true. If you go back and look at what Trump said clearly that he was opposed to the white supremacists, he was opposed to Klansmen, he was opposed to Nazis. I mean, he says it clearly.
It's not that clear.
It's not that clear.
Well, I think as a crime video, it's pretty darn clear.
Well, it's not, because I have what he said right here. And his first statement, he said that there was violence on many sides. 2 days later, after all the backlash, is the first time that he even mentioned the KKK and neo-Nazis. And then the following day, he still said, Newt, you had some very bad people in that group. You also had some very fine people on both sides.
Well, if by both sides, and look, this is an interesting topic. Are we going to say, if you are somebody who thought Robert E. Lee was a decent person, which, by the way, would be a very high percent of white Virginians. Okay?
Wasn't he a traitor to the country?
And a slaveholder?
He was a traitor, yes. Okay, so now you're going to say, now you're going to say everybody in the South who thinks that anybody was a reasonable person is, you know what might have inappropriate.
What might have worked probably better if those good people, the good people he was, I guess, alluding to, looked over and saw some of the placards that people were carrying, the anti-Semitic words that were being said. Perhaps they might have marched in a different march.
I think they would have.
You know? And so I think, but if you see that, you leave. You don't want, if you're going to march with these folks, if you're in the picture with them, it looks like you are part of the problem. So even if you say there were good people, you have to understand that that's not what people see, because you figure if you're a good person and you're marching for the monument, you're not going to let people say, well, you know, we're not going to let Jews take over our lives and no more Jews and no more blacks and all of that stuff. So I think that's why people have a problem with it.
I just want to make 2 points, though, if I could.
No,
look,
stop.
I mean, the first point is that when you look at organized groups like Antifa, there is a fair amount of violence on the left.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, so let's stick with Charlottesville, because that's what we're talking about.
The second point is, you have a president whose daughter and son-in-law and grandchildren are all Jewish.
Yeah.
The idea that he's in any way anti-Semitic, I think, is irrational.
But no one said that. What we said, Speaker Gingrich, is that he said, you had some very bad people in that group. You also had some very fine people on both sides. And the suggestion somehow that he did not say that is intellectually dishonest.
No, I didn't. I'm not being intellectually dishonest. I'm not being intellectually dishonest. I'm disagreeing with your interpretation. I'm saying, are you literally saying that everybody who favors having those statues is somehow a bad human being?
If you are marching with people with signs that say down with Jews, Jews are not going to take over our lives, and you don't step away because that's not how you feel, you're going to get lumped into that group. That's what we're saying.
So can't you also, could we be wondering if you say because he has a Jewish daughter and a Jewish son-in-law and Jewish grandchildren, that he still can't do both, have that and also give dog whistles to white nationalists? He can do both.
He doesn't do that.
Yeah, he does.
That's what
I've never heard him. But I've never heard him go out there and say, you know, my daughter's Jewish, my grandchildren are Jewish.
No,
I feel it very, very strongly. I've never heard that.
But again, to my first question, though, did he handle that perfectly then?
What?
When you go back to Charlottesville, did he handle that perfectly?
Because
clearly there's still so much confusion. People are angry still about that day and the lack of response.
And I said he didn't handle it perfectly at the time. So I'm not going to come in here or I go anywhere even to a Republican group, and get up and say, I think Donald Trump does anything perfectly. Donald Trump is a very powerful personality who at times steps on his own messages and at times makes mistakes. That's a reality.
Go ahead, baby.
I think we're going to take a commercial break and then come back, and then I would love to talk to you about politics in 2020, if that's okay, Newt.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about dinosaurs. I went to the American Museum yesterday.
Oh, yeah, you do. You love zoos and museums. Okay. I did know that.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll be back.
This week, get ready for a sizzling political view.